Hi everybody, and welcome back to part 10 of the Trumpeter 1/35th scale Tiger 1 Late project. In the last episode, I did the primer, the paint, the base paint, and the two camouflage colors. Once I got that done, then I shot it with a clear coat and did all the detail painting of the tools, spare tracks, all that kind of thing, and added the decals, which I must say the decals worked out really well. So at this point, I'm ready to start moving on to some weathering. All right, next up, I'm going to start working on a wash for this thing. So what I'm going to use is brown wash for German dark yellow, Ammo by MIG number 1000. It's an enamel wash, and I've used some of the panel line washes on the aircraft and they work really good, so I'm assuming these are going to work just as well. So I'm going to turn this on time lapse and start doing a little bit of it. Okay, the pin wash is done, and the next thing I'm going to do is, using a larger brush, I'm going to brush some of this on here. Now it looks really dark, okay, but you can relax. It'll be okay, because I tested it earlier on a spot and it'll work fine. It's just that the Zimmerit looks a little flat, and I want to bring out the detail of it a little bit better. So hence I'm doing this here. And it's just going to, you know, I forgot to put a wash on that, so let's do that right there. Okay, and you know, I like the look of that. I may even use this for a filter on the flat spots. But what I can do is once it sits for a bit, I can use a Q-tip and wipe the surface off and just leave the deposits. So that's what I'm going to work on right now. All right, so I got all the wash done, and many of you may have maybe thinking, wow, did all that pin wash and then you just did a big fat wash over top of it. Yeah, I could have probably saved myself a step and just done that because it worked out a lot better than I thought it was going to. So with all that done, it's dried overnight, so now I can do some Model Master Acryl Flat Clear. So I'm going to use 4 parts of that and 1 part of this. And I am again going to use the old Sparmax thing that I can't remember the name of ever. But I'm going to mix that up real quick and then I can get painting or clearing. Right, we're all mixed up, so let's go time lapse and here we go. Okay, the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to start, what I want to do is I want to start working underneath here so I can get the running gear in place so then I can weather all that as one whole unit. But under here, since it's behind the wheels, you can't see it anyway, but still I'm going to do it. I'm going to weather in there. So first thing I'm going to use is Ultimate Weathering Wash Dark Dirt. And all I'm going to do is using my special brush for just such things, I'm just going to slather it in here. Now this stuff looks almost black, but it dries a lot darker. I've already done that side and I'll show you in a minute, but I want to get this applied here so it can dry. Now, the way this stuff works is it dries to kind of a dusty finish where it's really flat. And there's different things you can do with it. Now, one thing about the darker colors, there's dark, dirt, and then there's one called earth, and they dry pretty dark, as you'll see here, and they don't remove as easily as the lighter colors. Now I don't know why that is, but it is. But it's not a big deal, and I'll show you why. But one thing to note is, depending on the finish of the paint, whether it's just bare paint or whether it's going over a clear, like in this case, it can do different things. So like if you have a real smooth surface, like a gloss that you put this over, it will wash, or it'll rub off really easily. If you have a really flat surface, then it is really gonna stick, and it can be almost impossible to get off, especially these darker colors, as I said. But with that knowledge, there's some things you can do depending on the type of amount of dirt that you're wanting to show. You can control that a little bit with whatever clear or whatever your paint finish is. So if it's a gloss, it's going to wipe off really easily, and it's really only going to leave stuff deposited in the detail and along edges and ledges and stuff like that. So like in here, it'll leave with a smooth finish. It'll be real easy to wipe most of it off and just leave it in the nooks and crannies and stuff. But if you're putting it on a semi-gloss, it'll still wipe off somewhat, but not as much as on the clear. And then, yes, you guessed it, on a flat surface, it's going to stick really well. So basically what you put on there is what you're going to get. And that is what I'm doing in this case here. If you'll remember, I sprayed a flat, but I want this under here to be pretty dirty, so that's why I'm using this dark as my first layer, to give it the first layer of dirt. So just put that in there like that. It'll kind of level out a little bit to where it won't be as streaky. I guess if you wanted, you could do this. Give it more of a vertical streak look, but I don't think that's necessary. So anyway, and if you use a bigger brush, it's gonna change the looks of it some. And remember, this is gonna be behind other detail, or the wheels. So you're not really gonna see much anyway. But there we go. So we'll let that dry, and what's going to happen is it's going to end up looking like this, real splotchy, dirty looking. Then once it dries on both sides, then I will move on to the next, which is going to be light dirt. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to do is paint the tracks. Now, you may be saying you've already painted the tracks, and I would say yes, I have. However, I found out an interesting thing during my research on the transportation tracks. Apparently, transportation tracks were painted an identifying color. So say you got some depot or some place where they have spare tracks for tigers, king tigers, whatever. They painted the transportation tracks, since they look so close visually, they painted them an identifying color. So for a Tiger 1, they would paint the transportation tracks a green color, and for the king tigers, they would paint them a red color, because to rail workers or supply workers or whatever they are, they would just grab tracks. They don't know the specifics of each type of track, so they would do they'd paint them an identifying color to make it easier to identify quickly, get them on the rail cars, and off they go. And if I remember, which I'll make myself a note, I will add a link to the article that I read that talks about that if you would like to read further and see that I am truly not out of my mind. So the color I'm going to use for that is going to be, I did some checking and I couldn't really get an answer as to what color they truly were, because it's not really known, I don't think. So I'm going to use a little bit of common sense here and go with something that the military or whoever would have had on hand. So I'm thinking, I'm going to check, but I think I'm going to try this RL6007 camouflage dark green. And if that one looks too dark, I may go with the medium olive, but I'll probably go with this. So I'll test it out on some paper and see what it looks like. Then I'll spray these. All right, so I am going to use the medium olive because it's not quite so dark. It's a little greener. It's one I use for the camouflage for the tank itself. And I want to be able to see it without it being too obnoxiously green, which is why I'm going with this instead of just a regular green. But then I don't want it to be so dark that it looks almost black, which is what I think that camo dark green would do. So this is the one I'm going to use. So I'm going to do the same thing as always. I'm going to use paint and my Plus Flow Improver color, and I'm not going to worry about getting a real opaque paint job because I'm going to be weathering over it and stuff, but I am going to try and get it especially down into the cracks and stuff. So I'll mix that up and start painting. All right, next, now that this is dry, I want to use this light dirt and put some of that on here. Whoops. Same thing, except I'm not going to do the whole. I'm not going to do the whole thing. I'm not going to go all the way up. I'm just going to mainly stick down here to where stuff pile up a little bit, I think. I'm not going to be real linear about it. I'm just going to kind of splotch it on here. I don't want it to be real even. Like that. So I'm gonna do it to the other side, let it dry, and we'll come back. Then once it's dry, I'm gonna take a Q-tip and just kind of blend it in a little bit with the darker stuff. So we kind of get like a little two-tone business going there. Some more dry stuff. Kind of wipe a little bit off like that, just to give it a dirty look. I don't want to make it muddy because the look I'm going for with this tank is something, you know, it's coming off a rail car, so it's not going to be all dirtied up and nasty looking. So like that. So now I can start thinking about putting the wheels and tracks on. All right, I did the same thing back here and down here. So I think I'm ready to start working on the running gear to get it installed. So first thing I'm going to do is using this 2B graphite pencil, I'm going to start working on getting these down to bare metal, simulated bare metal, like this. I need to do it to all these road wheels. All right, I went ahead and used the dark dirt wash, put a layer inside and on top or on the outside of the wheels. Then added some light dirt just to dirty them up, give them some variation. Same with the drive sprockets and everything else. So what I'm going to do first is I'm going to glue the road wheels and idlers on, and then I'm going to start doing a wash on the a little bit of weathering on the tracks. So you get those out of the way. And in order to keep my mitts from getting all graphite-y, I'm going to put on these here gloves. Something you couldn't get a year ago because they were all gone because of all the shenanigans in the world. Okay, so the road wheels are drying on the hull, and I am now going to do a wash, simulate dust on the tracks. And what I'm using is 502 Abteilung light mud, because in order to keep things unified, this color will match the light dirt a little bit better than the other stuff. The reason I'm not doing the light dirt is I don't want too much deposit going on in here, because if I put that in there, it'll be hard to get it out of the recesses, and I just don't want that because of what I'm trying to convey here. So I'm just gonna put this in here like this. You probably can't see what I'm doing. I'll start in the middle, which is contrary to the way I usually do things, but I'm just putting it in here. Not worrying too much about uniformity, just making sure it gets down in there, because when it dries, it'll transparent up a little bit. It won't be quite so dark, well, dark, opaque, I should say, and it'll still allow the green to show through, but yet have a little bit of dusty texture. All right, with the first dust layer done, I'm going to do a little bit of track polishing. And basically it's going to be along the wherever the wheels run and on the cleats. Now I'm not going to go real heavy with the cleats. I'm gonna try and not get down into the recesses on the cleats, going under the assumption that these were put on the vehicle long enough to get them off of a rail car, so they're not going to be real, you know, and not used overland or anything like that. They're just basically get off the rail car, get in position to get the battle tracks put on. So whether or not that's correct or not, don't know, but that's what I'm doing. So let's get cracking. Okay, now that I've got the flat or the graphite on there, I'm going to spray it with a coat of flat clear. And again, I'm going to be using the Model Master Acryl. And I will use Sparmax again. So let me get that ready. And here we go. Okay, so the tracks are drying with the clear coat. So the next thing I need to do before I can start putting all this together is to burnish up the teeth on the drive sprockets a bit. For that, I'll be using the same what is this? 2B pencil. Alright, so here is the way it works. So first of all, I had to remove a link because when I test fit it, it was just had too much sag in it. So, which brings about the point, it's better to have too many links than not enough because they're already painted and ready to go. You take one out, no harm, no foul. You just have a nice weathered piece of track there. So this is the way it's going to work, and hopefully I won't get my fat noggin in the way. We'll put some of this glue right here. Like that. And then I'm going to make sure that my tracks are going in the right direction. Wrap it around the drive sprocket. Get it down like that, and get the wheel to drop down on the axle. Make sure the tracks are all where they need to be. Then put, if you can see what's going on here, put that part in place and this one over top. And taking the pins that I removed carefully and hopefully try and get them back in place. Push it into place like that. And since it's already painted, you don't have to paint the other one. So then flip it over and put the remaining missing pin where it goes. And there it is. I had to do it off camera because my head kept getting in the way, but there it is. So the track is in place. Looks better when it's sitting on the ground, but hey, you get the idea. So now I'm going to do the other side. Alright, and this is where it sits. Sorry about the handheld business here, but I didn't want to get my other rig out, so this will have to do. But this is how it looks right now with the tracks on it. So I'm going to end this video here, and next time when I come back, I'll start with more weathering on the hull and the turret. So, as always, thanks for watching Plastic Models by a Regular Dude and part 10 of the Trumpeter 1/35 scale Tiger 1 Late project. As always, if you have any questions, comments, hints, tips, blah, 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 put them in the comments section down below. I'll get to them as quick as I can. So until next time, I will see you all later.